All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another Tuesday edition of Pixel Pro Displays. We do a webinar every 2 weeks, and on the off weeks, we hold a Tuesday night. We call it open mic night, and you guys are all welcome to join us. This isn't just for PPD club members. This is for pretty much anybody in the community who's looking to learn things or get started with the hobby or has questions about things or wants to work out how they can get things done. And, usually we have, 30 people, 40 people. As the night draws on, yeah, those numbers start to dwindle, but we've been holding our numbers pretty good the past few weeks, especially considering it's springtime and everybody's kind of up in the air about what projects they're doing, or they've decided on the projects. Now they're waiting for all of their stuff to come in. And to be honest, that's probably, if this is year number two, year number three for you, this is the most exciting part of the year. It's get ready to build because, you've got everything to look forward to. Uh, Let me get rid of something real quick, and we're gonna get rolling here. So I see we're live on YouTube. Good evening, YouTube. Welcome to our PPD webinar tonight. We're going to do a webinar on the intro to RGB, and we're going to focus on the layout tab. But before we do that, I have two small announcements to make. There it is. And the first of the two announcements is going to be the Florida Mega Mini. We are going to, Robert and I are going to be at the Florida Mega Mini this year. Um, it's a great time if you are going to go to the Florida Mega Mini. We're going to do a couple different. We're gonna do a couple. There's a number of classes to take, but there's some intensives. So if you go to the FloridaMegaMini.com website and you click on education, and you can come down to the intensives. There's four intensive classes. If you're into xLights, then one of these three will be more geared towards you. So if you want to get in on the festivities, Keith Wesley will be there. He's the lead Windows side developer for xLights. He's going to do a 2-day intermediate xLights intensive, intermediate to advanced, that is. And then also there's a beginner class with Patrick and Bill Porter. They're going to do a beginner class. So if you're brand new to xLights, kind of like what we're going over the each month, we're doing an intro series. They're going to do an intensive over a 2-day period. So that might be something that you're interested in. But if you're looking for, if you've already been in the hobby and you pretty much know exactly where you stand with a lot of things, and you do a lot of your own mapping with your sequences, maybe your people are sharing sequences with you, or maybe you're buying them. Maybe you're getting them for the shared drive, the Google Drive, whatever it is. Uh, what we'll be doing, a friend of mine, Barry Wiles from Sequence Solutions, we will be holding a intensive class on mapping like a pro. So two different sequencers in the community that have been doing this for 5, 7. Well, I've been doing it for a while now. Barry's been doing it at least 4 or 5 years now. And between the two of us, we have our own kind of processes, and we're going to work together to do a good class, a really good class. It's an intensive 1-day class, and we call it Mapping Like a Pro. And we're going to go through, we've got the bullet points here, and we've already worked out all of our information there that we're going to be going through. So it's going to be a great day if you want to get into mapping into a one-on-one level. We'll be there. The class is limited in size. So if you haven't signed up and you want to sign up, now's a good time to go sign up. This is the Friday before the Mega Mini. The Saturday and Sunday, the 21st and the 22nd, are the other 2 days of the Mini. So the last thing I want to mention is Light Up Ohio is the following week. So if you are planning on, if you're in the Midwest, or if you're anywhere near the state of Ohio, the state of Pennsylvania, and maybe you're in Kentucky or something, you might want to come up to um, Light Up Ohio. We do this every year. This has been up until up until they had to do the COVID thing. We got together every year for Light Up Ohio. It's a great event. So a huge shout out to the folks who've been setting it up. Saturday, April 27th. So it's the following week after the Florida Mega Mini. So you guys are all welcome. There is a event the night before where it's like a meet and greet type thing. So you're welcome to join us for that as well. So you can find more information in the PPU Facebook group. He posted this link here. So Light Up Ohio. But with that all out of the way, with everything that we're talking about tonight, we're going to get into the xLights layout tab and layouts and xLights in general. Now, I was very specific whenever I started out tonight with I want to do an intro. This is an introduction. This is not deep diving into any one specific topic or any one specific niche. So if you have questions, let me hopefully I can go find it real quick. Where is it at? Chat. Okay, chat did close on me, so I got it right opened. If you have questions, go ahead and throw them in chat. I'll try to keep them right here off to my right side so I can follow up with you and answer those questions. If you are on the YouTube, if you're on YouTube and watching this or watching this on the playback, we do this in a Zoom room. You can jump in, go to pixelprodisplays.com, and at the top of the page, you can click on the link that says learning, and at the top it says learning. It says PPD Zoom webinar. You can join us live every Tuesday, 8:30 Eastern Time PM. But if you are seeing this in the recording, feel free to put your comments in the comment section down below. I love reading the comments. I respond to them, and we'd like to follow up with you on what you are asking. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and get started. And tonight, when I talk about the layout tab, I'm just going to be as bare bones and basic and kind of give everybody who is not familiar with the layout tab or what some of the things, what are the main functions of the layout tab. I'm going to hit those main functions, and we're also going to talk a little bit about 3D. I might bring Rob in because he's a little bit more, he's done more 3D than I, but I've kind of set some things up ahead of time for 3D. But we're not going to get heavy into it. Again, this is kind of it's like a giant football field. It's, it's what is it, 100 yards? That's I mean, it's a long road to hoe, and if you can go every 20 yards and get a lot of information out of it. So the first thing that's important to know whenever you start working with inside the xLights layout tab is going to be that there are predefined or pre-made models that are built into xLights. Now, for game's sake, I have done a video pretty much on almost every one of these. You can find them on our PPD website, or if you're on YouTube, you can search for Pixel Pro Display layout creation. I called the series the layout creation series. And there's been some amendments over the years that I've added because of functions and features that have been improved upon and added to. I couldn't begin right now to go a deep dive onto every one of these models because there's just so much information. But I am going to go through and give you some specifics on whenever good times to use some of these. So across the top of the screen here, much like the xLights sequencing screen, you might see all these icons that are kind of grayed out along the top up there. Now, what you might consider is that these are effects that you could click and drag and put onto your sequencing screen. But the models are actually an individual icon that you click on, and there's actually three clicks that you can give to it. The first click is going to be one single click. Now that we're selecting here, the first pre-built determined model in xLights that's pre-made is an arch. Now, an arch is nothing crazy. It's a simple strand of lights in a half circle formation. We call it a leaping arch or an arch or whatever you want. You call it whatever you want. But we call them arches. And if you click one time, you'll notice that it allows you to create one. If you try to click and drag again, it creates a selection box, which you can click and drag and select an item. And once you click and drag and select an item, you can grab a hold of it, move it across the screen, place it wherever. You can grab the corners of the prop, and you can make it smaller or larger based on how that prop is built, right? So this is your basic functions inside the layout. Now, if you go ahead and you click not just once, but click a second time right onto that, any one of those, what will happen is you can come in here, click and drag, and then click and drag again, and click and drag again. and click and drag again. Now this might not seem like it's really super exciting, and if you already have a layout, but if you're starting out, this is probably one of the nicest little features, especially when you're going to make a lot of different models. And the reason for that will be whenever I show you something on importing models or downloading models. There's some super helpful. This is a super helpful function, especially with the way things have grown in xLights. So now we've got a couple arches on here. You'll notice that if I do go ahead and click and drag again, it will keep making these arches. To get it to stop, you just go back and click it one more time, and that kind of deselects it even though it's selected. So now we have a lasso box or a selection box. Now, whenever you have a bunch of models on your screen, it's easy to move them around. There's some things that you can do, but if you are and if you're in Mac, please forgive me. The Mac people can yell at me in the comments right now and tell me if I'm saying this right. But I think if you hold on, if you do a large selection like I've done here, and I'm in Windows and I'm holding the Control key down, and this one is selected here at the bottom. I'm going to select any other one, and if I hold the Control key and I click on a different one other than the initial selection, then you can move them as a group together. You can't lock them together, but you can move them together as a group. And where would this be useful? Well, if you decide, oh, I need to move these, I need to set these all up in a line somehow. Well, maybe we could do that if we click them all together like this. So here's a few other little kind of hints and tips and tricks to get you kind of going. So if you're in Mac, I believe it's called the Command key, and you can do the selection here. And if you hold the Command key and you click on another model, it'll hold them all together. So what happens is you build all these arches. What if you wanted to make them all exactly the same size? Because like literally you just clicked and dragged them out. Well, there is a function in xLights that allows you to copy and paste a model. Now, I don't know if this is how it works in Mac, but in Windows, I can hit the Control key and I can hit the C, letter C, lowercase c for copy, and then I can hit Control V, and it will offset it. Now, this is a blessing and a curse because, as I said, if you're importing the same model, there are features and functions in xLights where you want to use the import and you want to use the double click to do the import, to click and drag in and import the same model over and over again, because well, we'll get to it. The same thing for download. So anyway, now if these are let's say these are the correct size, let's go ahead and do a selection. And if we click on the one that we want to mimic all of the other ones to be exactly like, we can click drag, and I clicked on that one, selected it. Now I'm going to right click, and I can, on this right click menu, I can see this button, this selection is called resize. We can do a match width, match height, or match size. Well, they're all arches, so if we match size, boom, there they are. Well, now they're kind of little lumpy bumpy. Some are up here, some are down below, but they're pretty much all in line. We could do some other things, and one of those things that we could do is right click, and we can do this distribute. We can distribute horizontally, and now they're all spaced out evenly there. We can then right click again and we can align, and we can align them to the top, the bottom, the left, or the right. So we could do the top here. We'll try the top, and now they're all in an exact perfect line. And if you're trying to line things up perfectly, now I know this one's kind of, weird. It's kind of cocked. Might want to fix it a little bit. I don't know. But that's what happens whenever you build them a little bit separately. With the arches, that is. The rest of them aren't so bad. But this gives you a kind of an idea of some of the basic uses of just getting a model put into the layout and how you can build them. So the next ones we have candy canes. The candy canes, if you click and drag, oh, look, they're in a set of 3, and they hook one certain way. Well, one of the things that you need to be aware of once you've created a model is, how does the dang thing get wired? Because what if I build it one way and xLights builds it another way? So there's this function in xLights where once you have a model selected, you can right click and you can look at the wiring view. Now, in the wiring view, if we open this up and stretch this out, we can see that here's string number 1, candy cane number 1, and pixel number 1's at the bottom. So xLights built the model as a perfect candy cane, and it said, hey, I have 3 candy canes here. On string number 1, I'm going to put the first pixel at the bottom, and string pixel number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 18, all the way up the top there. This is how xLights builds the model natively. Now, if your candy cane isn't built that way, maybe you have a different way to build it. There are functions in here. And again, if you notice, I'll go back into that real quick. If you notice that whenever you're looking at the wiring view, you're looking at the reverse of it. Okay. And this is because most of the props that we use in our layouts tend to be a Coro prop, where you're pushing a pixel directly through the back end of the model of the prop. And so xLights has built a wiring diagram for you from the rear view. If you're looking straight on, it's going to be a little bit of a different story. And the reason for that is because if you created a wireframe model, those models, you can't wire them from behind. You want to wire them from the front because it doesn't make much sense. So what you can do is you can we can close this out, right click, and wiring view. I think there was a way to flip that. I can't remember. But there's so many options, xLight. That's a kind of getting ahead of myself. Let's go through the wiring just for a little bit so that you can see that, hey, I can customize this the way that I'd like to. First of all, by default, the canes have 3 different candy canes in one. You only have to put one down. If you want one candy cane, you can put one candy cane there. Look, there's no harm, no foul. They're actually kind of like the arches, kind of. And we'll go ahead and click and drag on that, and we can give it a number of pixels that are appropriate. So if we have 18 canes per node, maybe we have 30. Maybe there's 30 pixels, and now we can do this thing called lights per node. Those in the old days, we had pixel strips that had 3 LEDs per 1 pixel. Generally, you're going to leave this as 1. You have height of 1. If we go ahead and we can change that, notice what it does is it spreads it out or makes it taller. It just kind of spreads it out. I'm just going to leave it at 1. That's the default. Rotation. So if we go in and we start rotating it, maybe you want this to look a certain way in your layout so that it has a better visual front-on appearance. That's kind of helpful if you want to do that. Most of the time, for most people, the straight-on view is going to look good. If you needed to rewire this candy cane, let's say the first pixel on your candy cane was here at the top and went from the top down, you could set it up to do that. You could do a reverse wiring. Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. The reverse would be reverse the model, so it would flip the model backwards for you. You could also use what is known as a stick. This takes the arch out of the cane and it puts it into a stick form. Alternating node. If we alternate the nodes, so remember when we looked at this the first time, right click, wiring view, we looked at this, it started at the bottom and it worked its way all the way up to the top and it ended. Okay, well now what it's doing is alternating the start and end point of the model by going up, and it's like playing leapfrog. So imagine you're pushing pixels up and all the way around, and you're leaving a space between each one so that you can leapfrog back down. So your start pixel is at the bottom and your end pixel is at the bottom. It makes it a little easier for you to take an extension cord, a pixel extension, and go from one candy cane over, plug it into the next candy cane over here, and plug the next one into the next. And then you don't have this kind of weird hanging extension cord at the very tip of the candy cane. So you have that alternate node availability. Now, this is where I got the reverse kind of set up in reverse. We have this thing called start location. Now, if you notice, every model, every xLights model is going to come with 2 squares. It's going to have a green square. It's going to have a blue square. Between these 2 squares, xLights automatically sets the start location of where that prop is wired based on the color of the green box. So green box is always going to be by default where the model starts, gets plugged into. So why is this important? Well, it's important because depending on how your models are laid out, maybe these are closer together. Maybe you're plugging these 2 models in together here and your controller sits here, but then you're plugging these 2 models in here and these 2 are connected together as well. If your controller sits here, it makes sense that you don't need as long of an extension cord, and you could make perhaps this side be the start and this side be the end. The same thing is true for the candy canes. You could start them out at different ends or opposite ends. So what you can do is use a starting location to remove that, make the blue square, which would be the small blue square. This would be where you would see, and if we right click and we look at wiring view, this is probably going to start, it's just going to show it a little differently. That's all. But if you do that to the arches and we go to the start location, changes from green square all the way over to blue square. So now if we right click and if we look at the wiring view, instead of the model starting over here, and here I'll show you what I mean. Let me do a screen capture real quick because you might not be able to see it. New. There we go. So here's a screen capture here of what this one looks like, because I have to close this because you can't do anything in xLights unless that's closed. If we right click and we look at the wiring view here on this one that we didn't change, oh look, it didn't do it. It made me look bad. Oh well. Yeah, so I guess it looks the same, but whenever you reverse them, you're actually reversing the direction that you're getting the power running to. So if you're starting it over here, oops, I got to close that. If you're starting it on this side here, if you're starting it on the blue square, then you need to check that box, and then in the controller, you can put these two together and kind of plug them in one after another. So up in chat, it says, would you reverse the model to keep the green square to always show the start of the model, or change the start to the blue square? It depends. It all depends on how your layout is going to be plugged in and set up. I've worked generally whenever I work with somebody, and if we're doing it on like the commercial end, let's say, I'm usually going to do it the same way all the time, and we're going to build a layout based on the person who's plugging it in, so that they don't have to remember. If we do them all the same way, then it makes sense for them. And that might not be the same for you. If you have, let's say here, you put a controller right here, and you had, let's see, this one and this one, let's say these were over here, and you were putting two candy canes or two arches together, excuse me, and you were putting this on one output, this was on another one, and you were putting the controller right here, it might make more sense that you plug the first one in here and then plug the second one in directly to the first one, because, hey, you can just, reach each other. That's how I did mine in my show this past year. And then if you have ones on this side over here, we'll say, and let's say these were all over here, you're going to start them on this side where they plug in from. So it all depends. It all depends. I would not reverse the models in this instance. I would pay more attention to how you build the models first. That's way more important. And then being able to go in and look at your wiring diagram to kind of get a good feel for how they're built, so that when you build the model, they're identical to what's in xLights. That's a huge key. So I've talked about candy canes. I've talked about models, some arches. Let's talk about channel blocks. Channel blocks is an addition from xLights from years ago that was meant to simplify importing AC props. They're really not as super necessary as a sequencing item, but they're a quick way to quickly get models into xLights from other sequencing software. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but if you're using AC channels, the channel blocks are useful for those as well. The next one is create a new circle. So what is a circle? And if we go over here, we see something called a wreath. Of these two models, the first one that was ever created was the wreath model. And I'll start with that one only because I'm not saying not to use this one, but most likely you don't need to use this one. We've mentioned a number of times that the circle model was created so that you could create a pixel wreath. And what happened though is during pixel development and xLights development over the years, we got crazy with how we did things in xLights and added stuff to our show that was just absolutely insane. And so the developers found ways to do things that enhanced what we were already doing. And one of those things was we went from the wreath model to the circle model. So I'll go ahead and drag one out here. Now they look identical, But the difference is with the circle model, it's a native model that allows you to create massive high density props, such as the mesmerizer that you find at Boscoyo Studios. You can also create the mother of all wreaths using this model in xLights. And to do that, the way that it's broken down is it gives you the opportunity, just like the star model, because the star model is very much like this, like the circle model is. If you click on the circle model, you can have number of layers here. See how it says number of strings, nodes per string, and then center percent, which really doesn't make any sense. You can go in and you can update the number of layers. We can have 5 layers, we'll say. And whenever you click on that 5 layers and click outside the box or hit the tab button, you get an open box, which you can go in then and say, oh, well, how many pixels do you have per ring? So just for game's sake, I'm just going to fill these in with 50. And you can see how easy it is to build a circle model, especially something like the mother of all wreaths. You might find that it's really easy to build your own version, but it's usually better to download the models from the vendors because, quite frankly, there's a number of submodels that are built into them. That's another topic for another evening. So the percent of the center percent, if you just take that smaller or larger, what happens is it just draws it so that it has a smaller center. It gives you the freedom to create the model maybe more realistically, like the way you have it. If you have an inside layer and let's say it only has 25 pixels, and then you go out a layer, and because the distance in those is closer together, you can't get 50 in the middle. Maybe it's only 25, and maybe it's only 30 for the second layer, and then the third layer is 40, and the next one is 50, and the next one is 60. And you can, that's what we call concentric circles. They're one inside another, and they don't have to necessarily be equal. They can be whatever that you need them to be. If you created your own kind of prop, you're able to utilize this in one manner. And then obviously you can right click on here and you can look at the node layout or the wiring view, which is rather much more helpful, I think. And see where it's set. It starts it on the outside. Now you can always change your start direction with a circle. There's no green square in this. So if we start with the circle, it's going to default by going to the bottom outer, and it's going to say clockwise, CW for clockwise. And if we, again, because most models are used and built using like a Coro where you're looking at the back end, this wiring view is from the reverse. Whenever you're not looking at the wiring view, you're looking at it straight on as the guest who's watching your show. So this is the front view here that you're looking at on the screen. But whenever you turn around the model and you're pushing the pixels into the back of it, huge distinction is this is the reverse view. And it even says it on here, reverse view, circle model, and it doesn't have a rotation. Rotation would mean that you're moving where the start pixel is. Maybe it's over here and you're hanging it this way. So we'll go ahead and close this out. And if you wanted to, you have a couple options whenever you start pushing the pixels. So again, I revert back to what I said earlier. Always build the model in xLights first, then open the wiring diagram, and then go open up the model or open up your Coro order, and then begin kind of setting yourself up. You can use a marker and write on the back of the Coro where the first pixel is. You can print out these wiring diagrams. They're super helpful here. Let me go ahead and go wiring view. And if we click this out here, you can right click and you can print. So if I could set up my printer and I could send this over to the printer, and that would print out. And so you'd have a hard copy. That makes it super easy to do stuff like this. But this is one of the reasons why we like the circle model versus the wreath model. Now you can use the wreath model. I'm not telling you not to use it, but there's just there's no option to build that. And so if you want to call it a wreath, then you can, because if you look over here on the left-hand side of the screen there, what you'll see is each of these, whenever you're using a native model, you'll see that it gives it a name automatically. Arches, it gives it the name Candy Cane, and it gives you a little icon that shows what it is. The circle is a green circle, but the wreath actually looks like a little wreath icon. So whenever you're mapping sequences, that is one nice thing. Whenever you do map a sequence, sometimes it shows those little icons. There's something nicer. It shows that they're in groups, that is, maybe. No, they do show the icons, as a matter of fact. So that it is kind of helpful. I want to go back to this real quick and show that you can change your start location of the first pixel where you want to start them. You could start it on the top outer, and you could do it counterclockwise. In other words, from the front, it would go counterclockwise. From the front, from the viewing angle, it would go counterclockwise. So if we're looking at the screen here, would the top outer counterclockwise, it would start here at the top and it would go this way. But if we flipped it around, it would go clockwise. So if we selected that, one of the things that you might notice is, see that little turquoise colored pixel? It's right behind the string. Can't see it now. That tells you where the start pixel is. If we select it, right click and look at the wiring view, now you'll see that the start of it starts at the top. And even though it says counterclockwise, this is going in the clockwise direction from the 12 o'clock position all the way around, and then skips down to the inner. We're actually in the reverse view. So again, the reverse view kind of saves you there. And you can adjust this until you get it just right. Sometimes it's a little confusing on exactly what you need to do. So there's a couple of those. There's a couple of the models. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the cube model. The reason why is because it's very complex, but more than being complex, and I just went into 3D mode. It's really cool. It's a lot of fun to play with. But whenever you're in 2D mode, it doesn't look like much. Just know that this is something that if you're going to build and you're brand new, jump into PPD Zoom with us on Tuesday night. We'll walk you through it on how you want to build it, or you can ask the question in the the PP Facebook group. We're happy to kind of walk through and figure out, because there's a lot of settings with the cube that you can't, that may not be 100% apparent until you dive in and try to start messing around with it. And it may take a couple guesses on, how do I get this in there? What do I have to do to make this wire in correctly? But if we do look at this, right click, we have a node layout. There is no wiring diagram. If we do a node layout, we can see, and I did not do anything crazy here. The way this works, this is all one string. Maybe make this a little easier if I do this with number of strings, 2 strings. And if we right click and we look at the node layout, you'll see that what xLights does, it intelligently breaks this up and it says, hey, here's your nodes for how this is set up to be built, and it will build it with 2 different string colors. This is where the other one would kind of get plugged in at. Where's it at? But again, this is a rather more complex. If you're starting out, I don't want you playing with the cube right away. But it's something you're going to have to play with at the very least to get going exactly the way that you want. Let's move on to what this is create new custom model. If we click and we drag, it doesn't create anything. It just made a blank square on the screen, and it called the model custom. Well, I have a number of videos on this, and there's other ways to build custom models, but suffice to say, if you're creating a handmade custom model, maybe you bought something, let's say at Lowe's, Home Depot, something that you've had on your house for years, and it was an AC prop, and you want to magically turn it into a pixel prop. This is your way to jump in and create a custom model of any kind of basic shape. For example, I guess I could come in here and show you the basics of it. We can give it a height and a width. And it's also, there's depth here, which adds depth to this. So you can make a 3D custom model, but that's kind of like next level stuff. So we're just going to keep this simple. And let's say we were going to make a I don't know, some sort of ornament that you've hung up, and you're just zip tying you're just zip tying pixels to the edge of the wireframe. We'll say this is your way that you could come in here and say, oh, I need about 20 squares wide by 20 squares tall. And then what you can do is, if it's best if you take a picture, you can take a picture of whatever it is. And I'll go find a picture here real quick. Let me go to this here, just to I'll say this. It's a circle. Okay. We'll just say it's a circle, right? Um, And what you would do is you'd have the picture in there of your prop with the pixels turned on, and you could literally in a couple seconds say, "Oh, here's pixel number one," and you can activate and auto increment and start with pixel number one, and you could say maybe this is the first one, and then anytime you would look for a specific pixel bulb and click on it, and you could get real detailed with this. But suffice to say, this if this were an ornament and maybe you're just going around in a circle, you're just creating an ornament, and maybe the top of it goes up like this, has a little topper, and that's it. And you click OK, and now you've got yourself a custom model that you've created, and that's a simple way for you to add that in. Um, Scott threw in chat, and I'm glad he said this. Don't use the wreath model. Yeah, I agree. I think it should be hidden. It should still be activated for people who may use it already, and they can continue to use it, but that would push everybody to just using the circle. That's a good idea, Scott. Um, So some vendors do print. Somebody's I'm reading chat here, and one of the comments in chat was yes. Gilbert also prints the wiring diagram on the back of a prop, makes it very nice, and it is. I Some vendors do it. Um, some vendors don't. It's an extra step in the creation process. So uh, I do highly recommend if you're buying a prop from one of the main vendors, if they offer a model to be with the wiring diagram on it, you certainly can. But that's that. I guess I'm still kind of old school. I remember the old days whenever none of that was available, and you just build your models and didn't have them to download. So let's move on. We kind of went through a custom model. We have a DMX model, and if we click on DMX, there's a bunch of kind of advanced items in here. And I don't want to go through all of these, but probably the most common one that people are going to look for are the moving heads. If you click on moving head and you put that down, you can create a model of a 3D moving head and use these for in your show if you're using moving heads. We did a whole video on this. You can look in the PPD website. You can look on the PPD YouTube channel. We've got some videos on that. If you have, let's say, a blow-up model or a cutout model that you light in the yard with a floodlight, or an AC channel, let's say, like maybe you have an LOR controller and you want to light up, maybe Linus is one and Lucy is one and Charlie Brown's another and Sally is another and so forth. You could use this create new image. So we'll go ahead and make one of those. Whoops, did I select it? Let me try it again. Whenever you click and draw it out, it doesn't draw an image, but what you get to do is you get to go over here into the image dialog and click on this, and then you can choose any image that you want. So here's a picture of a daisy. Boom. So there's your Coro cutout. You can use that for in your show. And what xLights will do is whenever you turn it on, it turns it on. It turns on the picture. You can see it. Maybe you have, like I said, Coro cutouts. Maybe you have the Grinch, or maybe you have Santa Claus, or maybe you have something. Maybe you have some blow molds. You can take a picture of your blow mold, literally take a picture of your blow mold, and then throw it in, save it on your computer, and then put it into xLights using this picture. And this is a great way to set this up. Now, we didn't go into a lot of the details down below here on the models because, again, understanding the layout tab and the functions in here, I don't want to throw everything at you, but if we go to string properties, you'll notice that the string type here is called single color. If we click on one of the other models, those are generally pixels or RGB nodes. So in this instance, this is meant for a single color prop. And you could use single color intensity as well. But that single color prop is just going to activate whenever you put that color of the on effect onto that one channel that turns that on and off. So that's a nice little function. I remember when Gil added that. I thought that was great. I've used that in a number of layouts for people because it used their actual prop and you were able to turn it on and off. Another one is the Icicles. If you click on the Icicles, there is a pattern that's built into the Icicles, and the drop pattern that's default is a 3-4-5-4, and that drop pattern by default comes with 80 pixel nodes on it. And some of the vendors have, let's say, 150 pixels. I think that's the Gilbert one. The Gilbert ones have 150 pixels, but they are and forgive me if I don't get this exactly right. I think theirs is a 1,8,1. And then if you click outside of the box, it builds the model for you. You see how it has a pixel there to start and a pixel there to end. And these are Coro Icicles. Now, the ones from Boscoyo is a little different. They're the Icicle 100. And you change that count to number of nodes. That's 100 pixels in that one. And it is 8,1,1. And then I'll hit the tab key, and they're basically the same kind of a model. It's exactly the same model. It's just built a little differently to work with whatever form factor you're going with, so that you can make these in any manner. Maybe you want to make your own icicle pixels. You can certainly do that. You could have custom icicle pixels made. You can buy the ones that are made from Coro. I like the ones from Coro. They were way easier to work with for me. But in any event, there's also, if you come in here, right click, you can look at the wiring view. And this would be like for Boscoyo, this is one set. But there's a couple options with the Icicles. The way the wiring is done here, you can see how it starts at the on the right side. It shows on the left here, but it starts on, or it shows on the left here, but it starts on the right from the rear. And you would push from this side down, and then you'd have to have a long stringer there. Well, to fix that, what the developers did was they allowed you to do an alternate node. So if we click that and select it again, wiring view, now you're going to see how we do that leapfrog again. See, so that says 1 and then 2, 3, 4. You get to the bottom and you're at 5, and now you leapfrog back 6, 7, 8, and then over here 9, 10, 11. You get the 3 across the top, and then you start leapfrogging down and rinse and repeat. And it's a very easy way to build those icicle models. Again, you don't have to use a vendor's model. You can create your own. Many people will buy, they'll just use Coro trim or Chroma trim or something like that. Or maybe they'll even use 3D printed pixel clips that they clip the pixels onto their gutters, and then they use, let's say, Megatree strip from Boscoyo. They'll cut the strip down to 8 or 9 or 6 or 10 or 11, make them even longer, and they'll do 1-inch spaced pixel icicles. So you have a lot of freedom to do different things within xLights whenever it comes to these different models. This here is the matrix panel. And I'm going to go ahead over here, and I'm going to make a Megatree panel or model. These two are basically identical. Basically, they're not identical, but they're basically identical. If you're making a Megatree or a tree or a mini tree, if you buy a mini tree from Boscoyo, if you buy a mini tree from one of the other core vendors, Gilbert or maybe Jackie, if you're building your own tree, you should use just the tree. I highly recommend it. The functions in the tree are a little different than the matrix, but they're very similar. So for the matrix, you have 2 different types of matrix. You can do a horizontal or you can do a vertical. And whenever you do a vertical, it's going to be like this, a little bit more taller than it is wide. That's the difference between them. But whenever you have them stretched out like this is a horizontal one. And it by default, xLights builds them with a 16 by 50. So when we talk about matrix and Megatree sizes, please keep in mind that whenever you're reading these or seeing these in the groups or the lingo, the way the lingo works is it's the exact lingo that we use in using our monitors. So right now you're watching a monitor and you see us on, we're doing this little class here, and across the bottom of your screen, there's a number of pixels on your screen. And then from bottom to top of your monitor, there's a number of pixels, and it's the way that the light transposes across them that gives us the video animation that we see when we're watching television or viewing a video, or we're projecting something with a projector, or we're working within one of these matrix or megatree panels. The model always starts with the number of pixels wide first, and then it goes to the number of pixels tall first. So when you hear people ask you, what size tree are you running? Most likely they're going to say a 16 by 50. And the big number is the second number. And the smaller number is the first number, we'll say. And in that instance, let me just change this so you can get a better idea. We'll make this a flat tree. So this would be a 16 by 50. It's wide by 16. Its height is by 50. If you were telling somebody, hey, I just built my matrix. And, oh, what size is your matrix? Oh, my matrix is, and xLights would say, this is 50 wide by 16 tall. So 50 by 16. So always lead with your width, and then your height is the second number. So just be aware of that whenever you're talking in the groups. It makes a little bit more sense to the person who you are dealing with. And if you didn't know that, I hope you've learned something new today. That's how we've for years we've talked about like 1920 by 1080 definition, 1080p definition. That's how TVs are measured. So 1920 by 1080, 1920 wide by 1080 tall would be this monitor, or standard TV. And then you get into bigger ones like 4K and 8K and crazy stuff like that. But basically, you have different ways that you can build a matrix. If you are building a wide matrix like a television, you're going to start with the number of pixels wide and the number of strings tall. I'm not going to get into how to build all of these two specific models. I have 3 or 4 videos in the model creation and build series. You can check those out. I go into high detail onto how to build them. A number of updates have been done to these over the years. I don't even want to begin to get into the weeds with every little detail about building models. The next model is the basic model. This is our single strand. So if you're going to make a roof outline, you're probably going to use the single line or the single strand. And again, keep in mind that whenever you're building with the single strand, you are doing one specific area. Maybe these specifically are verticals on your house. So that's one of my favorite things to sequence, are the verticals on a house or on any house, or verticals are just a lot of fun to play with. And then if you're using gutters, we'll say maybe this is a gutter here. You can create a submodel of your icicles, so that and a submodel is just a basic base part of a model that you're only isolating those items and you're sequencing on those items. So it acts as its own independent thing, whereas the icicles are just the drips. You might be able to just sequence on the drips versus sequencing upon the on top of the entire model itself. So there's a little bit of basics about submodels. But if you were going to make a single strand, generally, remember the rule of thumb is it always starts at the green square. So if you're building your layout, and let's say we're going to make a couple of these back to back to back. I'm just outlining the outside of my house, or something to that effect. Make sure you're building all your strings the same exact way. Now let me get off of here. And if I click on these, you can see that the green there is always at the bottom, and the blue is at the top. If you know that you're going to go up and around something, you certainly can build the model a certain way if you're going to. But there's also another function in xLights that's very similar to the single strand that comes in helpful whenever you're doing your layout build, and that is the polyline. If we click on polyline, what polyline does is that it gives you a single strand. But let's say you have a dormer that you're going to go up over and a dormer that you're going to come back down. Then you're going to continue with your roof outline. That's a way for you to make a one single long line run. I can hit escape here, and that ends the line. And now what you can do is you can deep dive into each one of these areas, and you can work out how many pixels go into that area, because you may have to go out there, out in the field, and you have to take your tape measure. You have to go out there and measure. And say, oh, I'm going to have this many pixels in this area because I'm going to have 2 or 3 or 4 inch spacing, whatever it is. And you can come in here and you can say, oh, well, my house is a little bit more asymmetrical. You know, maybe it's not perfectly symmetrical. Maybe it's got this kind of dormer here and you've got a longer run here. So what you can do is you can come down into the polyline itself, and you can see uh, number of strings. You can have a number of strings. You can put two strings on this or two outputs. Again, here's the green squares, the start. If you make this model and you realize, oh, I need to power it from this end, maybe this becomes the beginning, you can switch where it begins from. Drop pattern, you can actually use this to make let's do 8. You can actually do this to make icicles out of, although it's not as apparent. You might have to go in. Here's the number of nodes. Let's say it's 300 nodes. There you go. You've got yourself some icicles there if you wanted to use them that way. But I'm going to change the drop pattern down to one or 0. This is the height. Let's see, individual segments. So this is where it's important. So if we want to individually set up each one of our segments, you just click that little checkbox, hit the plus sign, and segment number 1. See, whenever I select it, notice how it highlights it. This is segment number 1. Segment number 2 highlighted that section there. Segment number 3. So now you can enter your actual numbers. You went up on the roof, you measured, and this is your way of being able to go in and identify exactly how many pixels are in what section. I like to, I usually have a smaller notebook than this, but it's usually like a hand tablet, and I'll write down everything as I'm, so that whenever I'm done, I have them written down. I can go run into the house and I can put it here in my layout. And there's going to be 100, maybe there's going to be 75 pixels in the first run. Maybe this is only going to be 40, and maybe the other one's going to be 40 because they're identical lengths. And then you get to the other one here and it's only like 30, we'll say. So maybe that's more of a realistic number if you're going with 2 or 3 inch spacing or something to that effect. There's a lot of options, but this is the basics. Again, this is just getting you started with understanding some of these models that are built into xLights. One of our favorites now, this is the sphere model. I'm going to jack this up with a number more pixels. Let's do 300. There we go. Now you can tell it's a sphere. Let's say there's 30. There we go. That's a sphere. If we go into 3D, and if you want to build one of these, that'd be pretty grand. That'd be pretty grand, pretty interesting. But the sphere is a very interesting prop. It's based on the mega tree model. The only difference between the tree and the sphere is the fact that the tree is conical shaped, and it gives you some really interesting looks whenever you're sequencing, even though it's just a regular effect because of the cone shape. It applies the effects differently, and the exact same thing is true and can be said about the sphere model. Whenever you go in, you apply different effects to it. It looks like a giant marble. It can look like a giant eyeball. It's a lot of fun to play with the sphere model whenever you're sequencing. So definitely a fun prop to begin to play with. You can tell it's 3D whenever you go into 3D. It may not be as apparent in 2D that it is 3D, but it's there. And to be honest, the mega tree model has always been a 360-degree round tree. This one says 180 here, but you could go 360 and utilize it. You could have, let's do 48 strings around with 200 pixels on it. That would be quite the extravagant mega tree right there. So there you go. Moving along, we have a model. I call this the model that is often forgotten about. This is the spinner model. Years ago, I made a pre-drilled spinner out of out of PVC, and did a video on it on my old Leechburg Lights channel. Watch that video if you'd like. But it's a way for you to DIY your own spinner, and so the spinner has been added in. You can make it. Mine were made with 1 string. I had 8 arms on mine. Per arm there were 22 pixels, and I went all the way to the center, and so this would be like 5, and it looked just kind of like that. And then I learned that you could do leapfrogging before I had learned that you had to before I realized, well, if we look at the wiring diagram here, we'll open that up. You can see that the wiring diagram would infer that, oh, you started out here and you worked your way in, and then you have this stretch from the inside to the outside, and that's how I actually built the original model. But years later, the developers fixed this. They gave you a zigzag so that you could leapfrog. And if you want to build one of these, I have the instructions, and here's how you can build your own. But if you look at the wiring view here, oh, that doesn't exactly look like what I imagined it to. Start location, center, alternate clockwise. There we go. Wiring view. There we go. That's a little better. So started from the inside, work your way out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way out to 12, and then back into 22. That's exactly how I built the new one. So, and then this is a really simple model, simple prop to build. So, you could fill your house up with these pixel spinners. Use the actual model. I had a lot of fun sequencing this. It's a great prop to add into your show. But most people want the high definition of stuff nowadays. But you can do them high definition. They look pretty glorious. Let me look at a couple of questions here because I have been flying through and I didn't really go through the questions. So let's see. Um, Blow up model. Alex, never mind, Alex. You're funny. Clyde, can we also talk about some about how to build a pixel matrix, something that can be placed on an 8-foot tall pillar? So I have an 8-foot tall pillar, and I used I can show you very quickly how I built my matrix. I used a vertical matrix, and I went vertically, and I had one string, and I have to think really quick because it was 48 tall by 8 wide, so it's 384 pixels. So string was 1, pixels were 384, and I again, this is one string. And then I had to do a little bit of zigzagging because I used one output for this. Actually, I used 4 outputs for this, but I don't want to get into that real quick. There was strands per string. There were 8 of those. So boom, that would be my column matrix that I use on my house. I have on my old house. I have them. I haven't used them this past year, but plan to get them back out and get on them. But that's how I would make a column matricy. And if you look at the wiring view here, you could set it to wiring view. Bam. Something. Oh, it stretched all the way up there. There we go. It started at the top right, which you'd probably want it on the ground if the controller's on the ground. If the controller's on the roof, you might put it at the top. That's up to you. But that's how you would do it. Down and then up, down, then up, down, then up. I used a couple outputs on mine. I made mine custom, so that's a good question. Matrix versus virtual matrix. That's a topic we'll get into after the class. We'll mark, so save that for later. The difference between let's keep going there. Verticals. Brad does not agree with verticals are not as much fun to play with as blow up models are. So I don't know what they're referring to in chat, but I'm sure it is something that's not PG rated. What strategy would you recommend for 175 circles that are part of my fence? 19 pixels each circle, 12 circles per panel. Would it be better to set for each circle be an individual prop, or should I model groups of circles like a fence panel worth? I so the truth be told, there is I would probably do a custom model based on the panel. So if you're going to build it that way, it just makes more sense to make a custom model. That's just me. You could make a custom model out of a circle, and it could be Boscoyo sells these little discs, and you can hang them or you can lay them on the ground. But to me, it makes more sense if they weren't individual models, if they were built as on a fence panel, we'll say, and you were hanging them up the same way every year. I would probably do it as one model. It's easier to move it across your layout that way. But at the same time, if you ever change it, you want to hang them in different places, then maybe you want to consider doing it individually. There's no downside for other than once they're in place, there's no downside to one or the other. I just think it's easier to move a big panel of them in a custom model than it is to move 30 of the little son of a guns all over the place. So that it's inconsequential, I don't think. Um, okay, so let's get back into we did the spinner. Let's go into the star. Um, Here is the star model. Obviously, people like to put stars on top of mega trees. Here's your mega tree. Here's your star. Again, the developers are not going to grab two models and click on them and right click and lock them together. Oh, wait, what's that? Oh, that means they're locked on the screen. So there's a function. This can be moved around, but this cannot be moved around. But because these were both selected at the same time, right click and unlock, now they can move around. You can't move them whenever they're locked. But you can't lock two models together so that whenever you have them, that they always move together. That's just not going to happen. So with this star, you're going to put a star on top of your tree. Many of the stars that you can buy are concentric, just like the circle is. We can come over here and we can add 6 layers to the star. That's a common star to get. If we click the little box to expand and we have the inside being 20, this is the common one from Boscoia, 30, 40, 50, 60, and 70. This is the one we use in the Pro layout. That's exactly the same star that you might get from Boscoia Studios, or maybe Gilbert has that one as well. This inner percent gives you that kind of stretched out. See how it's going to move those pixels out, and it's going to leave the center more blank. That's up to you if you want to change that inner percentage. You can always do that as well. Let's see. So that would be the star. The star has the layers. You can, again, you can build submodels on all of these things. It's a lot of fun to mess around. Excuse me, a lot of fun to mess around with. Moving on, the square is a window frame, and there's a couple things. We did a couple window frames. We actually did a video. You can do arched window frames at the top. So if you have a fancy window and it has an arched top, xLights allows you to do that. You can check out the video. I'm not going to go through that. But the way the models are built for your windows, generally, if you have, let's say, here's your roof, and here's your window. Let's say your window's here, and you've got, like, let's say one window here, and you got another window here. And maybe this one's a little different than the other one. Maybe it's wider and not as tall. There's 2 settings on these. So the lights at the top and the lights at the bottom can be different. Maybe it's 30 across, 30 across, but maybe up and down, maybe it's only 20. So that's how you can go in and you can give your lights on the window frames, because generally your verticals are going to be identical. You may have a difference at the top or the bottom. And now, why would you have a difference at the bottom? Well, if you were looking at your house and you wanted to have a front door, maybe your left and your right sides are 50, maybe across it is 24. And your bottom is 0. That is a way for you to make your front door model using the window frame model, which is a way better way to do it. The polyline, you could also do a door frame with a polyline, but they get a little bit messy after a while, because if you accidentally grab on to one a certain way, or if you grab, I'm not the polylines are great, but the downside to using them is they take up this whole space here. So if you have, like, snowflakes on the roof and you go to grab your snowflake that's on the roof, generally you're going to grab a hold of the roof first before you grab the snowflakes that you put on your roof. So the polylines are that way. It tends to grab outside of the area whenever you're trying to grab something else, and it's hard to grab some things. So polyline is helpful, and at the same time, so is the window model. Next, we already talked about this. The last two main models that are in xLights are not models, but the functions that are here is the import and the download. So before I go any further, I'm going to bring this up. Um, if you happen to get if you're using sequences, let's say from us from Pixel Pro Displays, we've gone through and on our website, you can go to learning and go to certified models. We've taken the time to build our models in xLights with our PPD groups, and it makes it easy to map our sequences over along with other models that you may already have. And what it does is you can combine this model with another model. And but if you have some of these different models, let's say right here, under here, here's Boscoya Studios, you can search for them. We just have them on a list. Maybe you're going to do some arches, or you're going to do the bellflower, or you've got the different snowflakes. They're all listed here. A lot of them are listed here. There's the spider web, the poinsettia, the holly and berries. If let's say we were going to download one of these. This is a manual way to download. You can't download these through xLights, but you can. Now, I've downloaded that. I'm just going to put that off to the side for now. If we were going to import a model, somebody shared a model with you, you can export and import any model. And to do that, you would just select it. Oh, let me get rid of that. Delete. So to delete a model, if you accidentally made a model, you can select it, and you can hit the delete key on your keyboard and hit the yes, and it goes away forever. So if we were importing a model that somebody shared with you, you click this one time, you click and drag, and what happens is xLights opens up a dialog box for you to go search. I have this in my downloads. I just selected this one that says PPD Boscoya Holly. This is the Holly Berry from Boscoya Studios. And the nice thing about the import function is with our certified models and some of the models in xLights, because we're not the only ones that have done this now, that some vendors may have taken the time to build groups for the props. What we did is whenever you export the model, you can export the group that the submodels are attached to. So what we did was we basically created groups here, and we'll get into that here in a second about creating groups, because that was one thing I wanted to hit on, and we're almost done. So two, by the way, I'm sure you guys are getting excited. So here's your model. This is an imported model. Let's say you had multiple models. This is why it's important to have the double click function on the import screen. And if we click and drag, you can click one time, and there's another one. And look, we've brought in this set of groups that were attached to it. It's saying, hey, look, this model has some things that already have the same groups applied to it. It says here, model contains model groups that already exist. Would you like to add this model to the existing groups? And what that means is, hey, it recognizes that something else in this layout uses the same thing. Go ahead and share it with it. So if you do hit yes, and then we come up here and we click on snowflakes, it should highlight them both. Now, remember, we double click there, and we just created a third model. This is a great little secret. So, and Rob's mentioned this. I don't think I've ever talked about this in a video. But it's again asking me, hey, are you sure you want to add this? So if you added 4 of these awesome little or 5, now that I've screwed up, you could have that all set up. Now, to turn this off, because I certainly don't need any more. I have 2 of these myself, and I love them. That's where the model came from, because I love these. You can set these up on your house. Maybe you have too many of them now, but in any event, you now know how you can put them all together in one line. You can kind of make them all the same size. Let's go ahead and do that. I'll get this out of the way. Move this up here. We're not actually building a house, so it doesn't matter. And you can click on the one you want it to size like. You could do this one here, resize, match size. And now they're all the same size. Now, again, you can do with a line to the bottom because you want them to look perfect. Now you can right click, distribute horizontally, and bam, they're all in a line now. And then if you click here and put them underneath your roof or wherever you're going to put them, there's your way. While we have a group of these imported models, let's go ahead and you can to create a group. Now, these have already had a group created. If we click on it here, it says snowflakes. They're all in the snowflake group. That's what we kind of see those as. And then the submodels here, those are the little berries. And then here's the arms, the little centers of the leaf. And then the outer petals are the rings there. That's the groups that we kind of submodeled them after. If you were going to create your own group, though, you might click and drag and select, and you can, from this point, right-click, and you can hit the selection that says Create Group. And now here you can give it Holly. And now you have the Holly group because that's what you want to use. So there's kind of an interesting addition to xLights that is the multiple models being selected. Finally, we have the model download. Now it's going to take a little bit for this to work. It's going to if you're creating a list of models here, it takes some time for all of them to be generated. In fact, I don't see Boscoios on there. Let me try again. Import, click and drag. Oh, no, I didn't mean import. I meant download. Silly. One more time. Thinking about it. There we go. No, not there. This is a bug with my internet, not with xLights. Don't. Yeah, somebody just commented in chat, Windows downloads so fast. Well, see, I still don't see Boscoia. Third time's a charm. And see how it's hung up right now. Alex, oh my, OMG, no more groups. I'm not sure what that means. No, I did not hit the hide vendor. See, there's Boscoia. It's a problem with my internet. I have an issue with this here. I don't know why. But in any event, let's say you had any one of the models from inside here. Let's say a spinner. It makes sense to have these Coro spinners here. This is a 15-inch, like kind of a lollipop topper. You would select it, or you could use the search function, and you could do spinner. And what it'll do is it'll find it. Now, this clicked and dragged it out, kind of weird. But there's the model. Let's say we were going to do multiples, and you're going to use the exact same ones. Let's go find the Boscoia. Let's do the mesmerizer because that's going to be a little more interesting. And hit the end. I mean, there we go. Boscoia mesmerizer spinner. Insert. So there is the mesmerizer. I just clicked and dragged, but notice I double clicked on this, and did it bring it in? It didn't. You can do multiples of it. There you go. And just like we did with the import models, not all of them have groups. Some of them have groups, some of them don't. There's no way to tell if it has a group built into it. That's why we did the certifieds. But you certainly can go in and utilize that functionality. Any questions that you want to throw in chat up until now about what we've talked about? Robert, what do you mean icicles and how to align them? I need a little more information. I mean, to align them would be here's your roof outline, let's say, and I'll try to do this poorly and quickly and poorly. I'll try to do this as good as I can. So maybe you're doing something like this, and maybe you don't have these breaks in between them. Maybe they're just 8s all the way across, and maybe you have 300 of them. That might be, is that what you're trying, is that what you're asking? One set behind other one 2D, how to do them to make them look the same on 2D. If I were doing and I have done this before, and keep this in mind, I have done this before. My lower roof line on my house, on my old house, was sort of set up like this. So we'll say it looked like this. This was the front, this is the sides, and this is the side. I'm assuming, Robert, that's what you're asking, right? How do I put the icicles over here? What I honestly would do is I wouldn't worry too much about this jutting out. I just make this all one straight line. and I know that this segment here and this segment here is where the icicles are going to be. And then I would just make my icicles the whole entire length, uh, just like this. If I'm doing 2D, if you're doing 3D, it's a whole different story. You have to use polyline, and Rob would be a better person to because he's actually built a lot of them that way. So, but that's how I would do it if I was doing 2D, knowing that this was one section here and then the main section and then the side over here. So that's kind of how because that's how I see 2D. I basically see 2D. Um, let's see. Uh, yeah, no, I didn't hide the vendor. Okay, so it looks like we're caught up on questions. The last thing that I want to talk about is the basics of 3D, which Robert kind of pushed us a little bit more into. If we go into the 3D into xLights, we kind of already did this a little bit earlier, but I'm actually going to use a different layout for this because this one's already been completed. There is an awesome company out there that helps contractors and builders and different people create things and helps them bid jobs just by being able to take pictures of people's homes. It does some coordinating with, I'm sure, Google Maps of some sort, some kind of crazy sorcery and AI technology. And it actually can create an object. That's what this is here. If you notice on this layout, it was not highlighted. It's now available, but it was not highlighted before. If it's in 2D, you can't use the add obj or object. And the object that we're talking about here is the actual physical prop that is used to create the build of the house that you see in this image here. So what you can do if I'm in 3D and I go to my 3D object tab here and I click, I think is that the mesh? I can change the brightness here. Is it right here? 100. Mm.
What are you trying to do, Clyde?
No, just resize that not resize, but make the house lighter.
Oh,
I did
so
it
click on the house.
earlier.
Click on
Huh?
the house. Click on the house. Click on it.
I did. It hasn't
Okay.
selected it.
Then you got brightness over there, and it says 0, which doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I had it set earlier.
There you go. Now
Oh.
your brightness is 100 over there. That's what I
Oh,
said.
okay.
Now
Yeah,
you see
that's what it is. Okay, so you can't just click on it. You have to select it up here. So what you can do is you can lighten this so that whenever it looks like dark out, you can go to, like, let's say 20 and hit the tab key, and now the house is kind of dimmed out. And this is where you would come in and you would begin building. And again, this is a layout that Rob did a year or two back, where he actually used the 3D to and then we're actually in the 3D object, so it's only going to select the 3D object over here. If we go back to the models tab, you can come in and Robert, you can see how hovering over top of these models, see they're locked. That red means that they're locked, but he's using the polyline here, and he's figured out, he knows the size of the house because the house has been measured out and pictures were taken of it. Real quick, I am going to find the web page that I had earlier. Is that it? Yes, this is it. If you're interested in having this done, this is the website. It's called hover.to. You can try for free. It's usually like $195 for this service per year or something crazy. I don't know it, but you can try for free, and you can go in, follow the instructions in here. I personally haven't done this, but Rob did. And you can get a 3D representation of your house created. Once you receive it from them, you cancel your subscription and they don't charge you. They're very aware of our holiday hobby community right now because so many there's so many people that have been doing this over the years that they're like, "Oh, are you with the Christmas light people?" And they'll kind of get it. But they'll create a house model for you. You'll need somebody like who knows SketchUp or AutoCAD, who can convert the file that they give you into an OBJ file or an object file here that allows you to bring it into xLights. And Rob usually helps people with that because he knows how to do that. I don't. So generally, building in 3D is great whenever you want to physically see exactly what the standpoint is of your layout whenever you are sitting inside your house and you're having a hard time picturing how everything should go. Everybody's very pro 3D. It's not that I'm not pro 3D. It's that I don't need it. My brain can kind of see in 3D sometimes, many times. I can see how things are supposed to be whenever you're looking at them. And so my brain kind of thinks in a third dimension anyway. So me having this as a two-dimensional layout wouldn't matter to me. But it mattered to him because what he wanted to do is he wanted to look at his layout and he wanted to sit here on this little park bench that was in his yard. So he wanted to pretend that he was sitting right here. He wanted to pretend that he was sitting right here on the ground. And he wanted to say, oh, if I look up, what am I going to see? And this is what he can see from the vantage point. And he wanted to make sure that everything looked good from that perspective so he could see the whole house and how it all was going to work together. But that was important for him. And he had things that kind of jet out this way, this little side garage door here and the way things wrapped around his property. He really liked. He has a really nice house. But in any event, 3D is definitely a nice addition. However, xLights doesn't sequence in 2D. So if you are expecting crazy effects from xLights sequencing in 3D, it doesn't exactly work that way. If you have a house that, let's say, sits on the corner of a property, I highly recommend 3D because maybe you're going to take your side over here and you're going to decorate this side yard as well. That might be something that you want to do. And this is one way that you can kind of see everything spread out over here. Meanwhile, you have stuff over here in the front and the side of your other side of your house. And you can see kind of everything kind of stand back and look at it. One of the things that you'd have to consider doing whenever you're creating your 3D layout too is if you're going to sequence, and most sequencers don't sequence in 3D. They have a 3D layout, but to import an effect and apply it in 3D, you have to physically take different perspective previews of your house so that whenever you apply them to your sequencing, you can use it from a viewpoint. So here's a load viewpoint. Here is a save current viewpoint. So if we saved it here as left side, I just created a viewpoint. And if I go here, load view, and let's say I'm over here and I go to load viewpoint. And if I go to the left, it takes me back to that viewpoint. I can sequence two-dimensionally from this view. This could be how xLight sees where the effect is going to go. If you had, let's say you had a lot of stuff in your yard. Let's say this is your whole house in your yard, and you put a shockwave and you shockwaved from the middle here and exploded out and outward. You could take a viewpoint here and call this overhead, and you could create. You could load a viewpoint. Here's the front. We'll go to the front. If you wanted to go back to that viewpoint, you could load that viewpoint for the overhead view that we just created. And you can sequence with that view whenever you do a per preview in xLights. So I think I've spit out a whole lot of information in an hour and a half plus nonstop here. I am going to go ahead and say that's as basic as I can get through pretty much all of the models in xLights, touching on the basics for them, just doing a little bit of 3D and talking about it. If you have any questions and you're in YouTube, put them in the comments below. You can jump in the Zoom room with us. We are about to get started with the second half of our evening, which is PPD and our open mic night session, which is an open Q&A. So if you have questions, we're going to go ahead and unmute the microphones. We're going to let everybody in on whatever it is that you have on your mind. If you have questions, if there's things that you want answered, if you're on YouTube, put the questions in the comments section down below. I'm happy to answer them. I'm even more happy to do videos because you guys sometimes there's things that you're struggling with, and we don't want you to struggle. But at the same token, we probably can point you in the right direction. So. That's everything for me tonight, guys. Robert, huge thank you for moderating everything back there. I see a lot of people in the group chat answering questions. So thank you to all of you guys who are watching here in the Zoom room. We're going to go ahead and move on, and hope you guys all have a wonderful evening. If you liked the video, please give us a huge thumbs up if you haven't done yet. So hit the big black subscribe button down below, and don't forget to hit the bell for notifications so you never miss one of our awesome videos or our live video webinars that we do here every other Tuesday on the PPD YouTube channel and Pixel Pro Display. So guys, that's Clyde here. Robert, thank you very much for making sure all this got out there. And guys, we'll see you in the next video. If you want a cool shirt just like this one, go check out our store at pixelprodisplays.com. Search for our gear and stuff that we have got going on over there. We'll see you in the next video.